Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My apologies for being late. There was an operation known as Sacramento that they were running just a bit late today. So. Okay, I'm going to call the August 3rd meeting of the MAC to order. And Priscilla, if you would help us out on introducing council members and staff and then the public.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Priscilla Vargas. I'm the ADA Compliance Officer and also the staff liaison for MAC. Our MAC members that are present today will be Charles Johnson. We have Helen O'Connell. We have Frank Cugillo. We have Jean Lozano. Pam Floor. Jeff Tom. I think that's all of our members that are present in person. And on the phone, we have Margie Donovan. We have German Aon. And she won.
2:33 p.m. and 53 seconds.
I don't see you yet. So we have Margie and German virtually through the webinar. And that's everybody that's present from our council. We have members of faculty staff here as well. Carmen, do you have a microphone over there? Okay. Carmen Alba, she is VP of Bus Operations. Oh, go ahead, Carmen. You got it now.
Carmen Alba, VP of Bus Operations. Richard Mitchell just stepped out. He'll be right back. He's Director of Community Bus Services.
Hi, everyone. Laura Ham, VP of Planning and Engineering.
Hello all, Adam Green, Senior Admin.
Hi, my name is Annalicia Rodriguez. I'm with Customer Advocacy.
Good afternoon, Jamie Canterbury, Director of Customer Satisfaction.
Hi, my name is Sangeeta Arya. I'm Senior Systems Engineer for the Sacramento Zone Transit Engineering and Construction Department.
Good afternoon, Anthony Adams, Director of Planning for Sacramento.
Hello, Jamie Adelman, VP of Procurement, Real Estate and Special Projects for Sacramento.
Igor Avanto, Transportation Superintendent for Bus, for Go and Smart Ride.
Sean Reynolds, Program Analyst for SAC-RT-Go.
Rose Patton, Accessible Services Eligibility Specialist.
Austin Griner, Accessible Services Administrative Assistant.
Members. We have Jeff here.
Jeff Tardigia, Advocate, Transportation.
And virtually, do we have any members from the public? Can't quite read, but I don't think so. Good, okay. Well, there's Chris Flores, I see.
Hey guys, Chris Flores, Chief of Staff, SAC-RT.
That is. Lisa Brown, okay.
We've got Lisa Caparelli, sorry, Lisa, I'm always saying correctly, Fair Transit. Greg Hendricks. Did I miss anybody?
If we missed anybody, speak up.
Sue is on as well, to be honest.
To be honest.
SAC-RT.
And Greg Fishman as well.
And Christina Martinelli,
Oh, great.
Accessible Services Eligibility Specialist.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, if that's all in attendance, let's move on to approval of the minutes. The minutes have been distributed to the MAC. Are there any additions or changes to the minutes as submitted? Seeing none, I will call for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, Pam,
second.
thank you, Gene. All of those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay, and abstention. All right, the minutes for the July 13 meeting have been approved. Now we go to public comment, and these are for issues not on the agenda today. All right, and can we get a microphone for Jeff?
Hello, board. Hopefully this will be recorded. My concern for the last few months of meetings is the public has a very difficult time making any comment about this Mac board. I thank you for making it YouTube accessible so that in the future there is a means by which to see the recording of the Mac meeting for the future. I appreciate being able to see that. Reason why I'm here in person is because the agenda I get doesn't include the bylaws and the other thing else. So I appreciate having physically in my hand what is changed. Note, I see nothing in red to know what is changing on that circumstance of happening, which you printed out here, but appreciate that. Principal thing I'm going to be talking about today is the fact that 16th Street has a problem for accessibility. 29th Street has a problem of accessibility. 65th Street, if you are blind, if you are trying to get in a wheelchair, I had to take this last week, a blind person that got off at the light rail station at 29th Street and took them up to the north side of the station so I could get them on a sidewalk that could get them across over to Health and Human Services at 27th Street. Let's see, I think that's a 27th right next to 29th, but physically taking them over there. It is a mess to try and get through there because if you go on the south side, you have to go up a ramp, down a ramp, up a ramp, down a ramp, and you have to change directions in there. So I'm concerned with that. 16th, the problem there is where the station is located at. You cannot use the should we say the Connect card at the, should we say, West End, because the ramps that are set up there and hooked up through there. 29th Street, you have major obstacles of trying to get down, to get around, up and down. This is something that is, I consider to be an issue and a problem of accessibility. I have pictures with me to remind you again that the 2200 and the brand new buses have an accessibility issue in that you're using bench seats in there, not a bucket seat like you use in the 1500 series. So on the left side, if somebody other than a electric wheelchair goes there, their scooter, their walker, their should we say
30 seconds, Jeff.
okay, is all in the access way. I told you about this over a year ago, and it seems like nothing has been altered and changed for the new buses that are arriving now. Thank you very much. Public comment.
Okay, Jeff, thank you. Yes, for the full packet, normally you have to request that. It is on our website, and apparently it wasn't. So if you don't have it, then something got screwed up. Sorry about that, but thanks for bringing that to our attention and for all of the other items too. Okay, any other public comment? Seeing none, move on to the chair report. And I am extremely happy to introduce the newest member to the MAC, Isabel Ariola. And she has just arrived, and she comes to us from Resources for Independent Living, I believe. And so if you would like to quickly introduce yourself, that would be wonderful.
Thank you all for this opportunity to be on the microphone as a new practice for me. As Charles mentioned, I am with Resources for Independent Living. We have been around for a very long time. For the last couple of years, we faded out a little bit. We had a lot of change in staffing, on track, taking new direction, and advocacy is one of our new focuses. So I have been authorized to be here with everyone here and offer all my support. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and also thanks to RIL for having someone from RIL be represented on the MAC. We valued previous members of RIL over the years. So thank you for taking this on, and thanks for RIL to allowing.
I will pass that on to you.
Okay, very good. And one other bit of notice, since we're mostly back in person, it's a wonderful thing to be able to say, please check your cell phones and make sure that they are turned off. All right, very good. Let's move on to old business, and for the next few items, it will be the Laura Ham show. She has 3 items. I don't know if you're going to take them in the order as on the.
Yeah.
Okay, your choice. Okay, Laura Ham,
Can you hear me okay?
a little bit faint.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Nice to see you. Been a while since I've seen some of you in person, so nice to be here. Thank you for having me. Again, I'm Laura Ham. I'm the VP of Planning and Engineering here at SACRT. I'd like to give you an update on a few projects, starting with Watt I-80. And this presentation that you see in front of you was provided to the SACRT Board of Directors on July 24th. So I'm going to kind of go through what was shared with them. And I can respond to some questions regarding the project. So really, we want to focus on the master plan update and the status of the future construction at Watt I-80 to rehabilitate the station. So, does this work? No, you have to do it. That's okay. You can go to the next. Right. Thank you. Okay, so Watt I-80, if you're not familiar with it, the station is located in North Highlands. It's adjacent to Arden Arcade. The property is about 6 acres. It's a fairly large station with a park and ride. It's between the eastbound and westbound directions of Watt I-80 at its intersection with Watt Avenue. It's a dual level station, has elevators and stairs. It also serves as a regional hub for intermodal connections across multiple counties and jurisdictions. We have regional bus services coming into the station, as well as SACRT bus services connecting with light rail. You can go to the slide. Okay, so it's one of our busiest locations where passengers are transferring. As I mentioned, we have over 1,400 average daily boardings on light rail alone. And that's post-pandemic, so still a very busy station. It is prone to safety and security issues, being in the median of the freeway there and situated in an at-risk community. We are also challenged with poor pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicle access and aging infrastructure. We've been working to address this issue for at least the last decade. We do want to update you on that Reimagine Watt I-80 project in progress, which was initiated. That project was initiated in 2017, 2018, late 2017, early 2018. Go to the next slide. We partnered with Walk Sacramento for that project, and they have changed their name since then. They're now known as Civic Thread. And we initiated a community-based planning process for the renovation of the station. That process acknowledged the center's regional significance and our community outreach process in a diverse population of stakeholders. We'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So here's a snapshot of what we heard back in 2018. The community told us that improved maintenance and security can dramatically enhance the user experience, but the station needed more significant investment to solve the persistent issues. And back at our June Board of Directors meeting, there was a suggestion from the community that we reroute all of our buses so that passengers no longer need to use the elevator or stairs. And this is similar to what we addressed back in 2018 due to some pretty significant security issues going on at the station at the time. We actually considered as one of the options we presented to the community to close the station and reroute all our buses to Roseville Road Light Rail Station, which is 2 stations inbound from What I-80. Actually shares kind of a long park and ride lot with What I-80. The issue there is that there's no direct path for a bus from Watt Avenue to the station below. So that would add about 6,000 hours in running time per year to reroute those vehicles. But more importantly, many of our passengers access the station by walking and biking. And they would be required to make an additional transfer. About 25% of passengers are coming in either walking or biking in. Ultimately, we learned that by rerouting the buses, we would have a disproportionate impact on lower income riders and American River College students who rely on transit at that station. About 2/3 of the riders there transfer between bus and light rail also. So ultimately, a full refurbishment of the station was recommended while maintaining current connections. We do have a really proactive cleaning and maintenance schedule at Watt I-80. We have a guard on site during all operating hours. We have camera monitoring throughout the station and the transit center, and we clean that station at least twice a day, sometimes more often. But it's a challenge to keep it as clean and free of issues as we would like. Even since the time of the study, community impacts have increased on the station. I think we're all familiar with the increase of issues and impact of people who are unhoused, and particularly in that area. So it's an issue that we're, constantly working towards addressing and keeping it to the standard that we would like to see. But we are working towards addressing those major design issues that we think will have a more significant impact on the station. So we can go to the next slide here. Okay, so we expect to be awarding a $19 million construction contract at the end of this calendar year to complete the major renovation and reconstruction of the station. It's a pretty significant investment in one station, and that's related to the replacement of those stairs. We have already replaced the elevator. We're also widening the passenger platform on Watt I-80. And adding some additional safety features. We were just awarded $8 million in California Solutions for Congested Corridor grant funds back in June to support this effort as part of the Placer Gateway project. So as I mentioned, we're going to be replacing those enclosed switchback stairways that are oftentimes the safety and security issue with an open design concept to provide visibility, improve safety and accessibility. We're going to be widening the bus stop plazas on both sides of Watt Avenue, where we'll also add new canopies over the waiting area, lighting and bollards to separate passengers from vehicular traffic. Improved pedestrian crossings on Watt Avenue that will include accessible pedestrian signals. I know that was a request specifically from the council. And we're going to be squaring off the freeway on-ramps on Watt Avenue for safer pedestrian and bike crossings. There'll be new class 2 bike lanes added as well. There'll be increased lighting throughout the station, as well as new break facilities for SACRT employees that take their breaks at the station. So I know that our staff from the engineering team has been here and talked to MAC, perhaps your subcommittee, I'm not sure, it was the full council. Okay, so your subcommittee about the design. I would like you to know that many of your comments were incorporated, such as those accessible pedestrian signals. If there are any specific questions or concerns, I'd be happy to answer them at this point. That kind of wraps up my overall presentation, where we're going next.
Okay, Gene.
Laura, maybe it's drilling down too much. And I'm very pleased to hear the incorporation of several of the recommendations, including accessible pedestrian signals. We're hoping to have another access and infrastructure subcommittee meeting and to have Jenny Nilo come back.
She's our project manager.
Right. And we gave her several things, and one was for people with low vision was, well, let me backtrack. She had mentioned from the elevator and stairway, there would be a light, the lights built embedded into the pavement so that you have a visual guide to the tracks. And that is something we recommend around circular lights that could be more like arrows, so that kind of gave you the concept that that's what it's meant for. But we've mentioned too, tactile bar tiles going from those for people who would want a tactile pathway to go there. So that's, that's getting into the weeds right now, including the color of the striping on the steps and not using grooves. So I'm just wondering, top of your head, because you're not
Yeah,
prepared.
and we've discussed that to some extent, and I think she would be probably the best person to respond to
Okay,
you in detail,
fair.
but my understanding about the lights that were more arrow shaped is perhaps that those were not available on the market versus the embedded lights, but I think eliminated that element of lighting from the project, and I'll confirm that with Jenny and ask her to get back to you.
We'll look forward to her coming to our meeting. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from members of the MAC? Oh, yes, Isabel.
Braille, I'm assuming you're using some standard compliant ADA friendly signage. Have you additional signage that maybe goes above and beyond that?
We do have sign standards that we use throughout our system, and I know that a number of years ago related to our South Line Phase 2 extension, Blue Line Phase 2, that we have worked with the Mobility Advisory Council on those signage standards. I don't know of signage that exceeds those standards and couldn't tell you off the top of my head in our signage standards which signs exceed the minimum requirements, but we do include raised print and braille on a significant amount of signage in the stations.
Yeah, I'm thinking schedule itineraries, things like that, being present on the phone.
We don't provide station schedules on the platform. Something we are working towards is having automated announcements actually throughout our system that would include real-time arrival information for the next train. I am not certain whether we're proposing to have real-time bus arrival information up on the transit plaza, but I can ask about that.
I would appreciate it.
Any other questions from members of the MAC? Okay, going to members of the public, Jeff Tardigia.
Jeff Tardigia. Question is will there be a designated area for bus shuttle, and will bus shuttle schedules, since you're probably going to be not able to use the elevator for at least 6 months, will there be a posting of where the bus shuttle with the sandwich board is at? And also, what is the timing of those? You may note that there's a very different time of the, should we say, north side and the south side approaching. I wonder if anybody's even examined how long it takes the shuttle to get from one point to the other. And if you do anything downstairs as well. That's
Okay,
my question.
let me just clarify your question. Are you asking if the station would be closed and we would be shuttling passengers around the station with a bus? Is that what you're asking about?
One of the things you've not in all this time period of more than 2 years, come up with a designated area for a shuttle bus to be at, so it's recognized on the Watt Avenue level through there. I presume it would be easy not get mixed in with all the other buses, but somewhere marking on there, this is where your shuttle bus is, where you go to pick it up, because you haven't, and you have not posted either downstairs or upstairs in use, that what time it's going to be there. And I can note with that, you note there's a difference in the timing of the shuttle to arrive from downstairs, and whether you're, I don't know whether you're going to Roseville Road to get up through the upper level, or the other side of when you travel on the north side, be very quick, versus the south side takes extremely
But
long. period.
buses need to go down on back around. I'm not aware of a proposed closure of the station during construction. My understanding is that it'll actually remain open. We'll be doing certain portions of the station at a time. But again, we haven't awarded a construction contract yet or kicked that off, so we would need to get back to you on that element. And I'll follow up with our operations folks about whether it's possible for us to post a schedule of the shuttle bus. I think typically they're making that loop from the top to the bottom and coming back up as soon as they're done. So a posted schedule may not necessarily make sense for that type of service, but I'll follow up with our ops folks.
Okay, thank you. And I have one question. Now, is this whole project entirely funded by or through RT, or do you have some partners like the city or something of that sort?
I mentioned the Placer Gateway project. We did partner on that grant that we just received, but the funding in that grant, that $8 million I mentioned, is directed towards SACRT. I think the county does have a plan for some rehabilitation on Watt Avenue at a later date, but everything that I mentioned is part of the SACRT project.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, I guess number 2.
Yes. Oh, so this was light rail modernization. Is that right? That's the next
Uh,
one.
Low floor light rail train update.
Okay, so what I wanted to share with you, I also presented to the board on July 24th. And actually I shared with the board the work that we did with you when we went out and visited the Siemens facility. And we actually shared a little video of your visit out to the Siemens facility, and it may or may not have been shared with you. We are pleased to report that we did receive acknowledgement of our equivalent facilitation request for the ramps without the side barriers. That was approved by FTA. We received a letter from the FTA administrator in June. So we were successful in obtaining that equivalent facilitation proposal. Thank you very much for your help and all your input on the grant and the efforts.
All right, any questions? Yes, Gene.
This is going to the component of the low floor platforms that are being constructed. What is the status of getting on those that have a need for a railing on the backside? Getting those installed. We've heard complaints from Society for the Blind, 8th and O, and I understand there's other locations that the backside of it, there is a vertical
Where-
8-inch drop down.
Where we're not, where construction is not complete.
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
Think- but
right.
People, I'm sorry,
It's okay.
but people are using those platforms right now. And all we understand, it might be decorative little rock with elevation of maybe an inch on the edge in the back there. And that's inadequate. And if people are actually riding it, there have been blind passengers that walk vertically out and have gone off. And it just seemed like before that, those platforms are being utilized, those railings need to be installed at the same time before they come operational.
So I'm familiar with the issue that you're talking about where the cobblestones were used in a couple
Yeah.
of locations. Those aren't at all locations, but in a couple of locations.
Okay.
I see that Sue Bianchi is on the line, but I don't want to put her on the spot. I believe that engineering is working towards a solution and potentially it would be installing railings versus those cobblestones. If Sue's prepared to speak, we can ask her to, but otherwise we can get back to you in the future.
Yeah, if we can get timeline.
Okay.
Any other questions from the MAC? Seeing none, any questions from members of the public? Okay, Jeff, 1 minute.
Right now at 65th Street, you have a number of obstacles in the way. And I've observed people just simply walking across and watching them not realizing where that drop is at. These are people that are perfectly, have perfect vision that it shouldn't be an obstacle. I just note that at least at 65th Street, which has a minimum level, that because of the closeness of bus going on and the way everything is set up there, you have major obstacles where they're just walking through there. And it may raises some great difficulty. And I've seen at 29th Street where people walking across because there's no preferred pathway of designated pathway where they just run across and then they'll just jump up on the, should we say, raised platform on there. Just a comment of what observing and seeing what's going on right now with use. And as I said on that one, you blocked off the area behind, so you cannot use the sidewalk itself.
Okay, Jeff, thank you. Anything else on this issue? Okay, thanks, everybody. The next item is Smart Ride update with Laura.
We have a little PowerPoint here too, and this also was presented to the board on July 24th. So I want to just give you a quick update on some changes pending the Smart Ride. I'm not sure if you received any information about this previously. I don't want to bore you with too much information. if you-
Not formally
Okay.
presented here.
Okay. Here's another PowerPoint. Adam, you can find it in the July 24th board folder. Anyway, I'll just kind of get started, but so Smart Ride has been funded since 2018 through a grant from the Sacramento Transportation Authority through the current Measure A. There's a neighborhood shuttle fund in Measure A. And so we actually were fortunate enough to receive a $14 million grant that has funded that program for the last 5 years. We are at the end of our grant, or on June 30th. And so going into this fiscal year, we worked pretty diligently to obtain some additional funding to keep the program going to the extent possible. We have obtained a number of either smaller or one-time funding sources to develop a funding plan for the program, a modestly reduced program for the next 2 to 3 years. So we're pleased to share that with you. As you probably know, Smart Ride's an on-demand rideshare service. You can request your rides through either a smartphone app, through a phone call, or online. It's our standard fare is accepted on Smart Ride, including all of our discounts and passes. Groups of 5 or more going from the same location and to the same destination can ride for free. We also accept, of course, fares on that service. We have 9 zones today that cover over 165 square miles and a population of 788,000. It is one of the largest microtransit programs in the country in terms of coverage. The program has brought service to a lot of underserved residents in Sacramento County, and actually nationwide recognition for this community transit service that SACRT has been providing. We were one of the first to provide a service of this nature and of this magnitude. So although we received that grant, RT did provide all the capital funding for the program, including a fleet of 45 vehicles that support that program. As I mentioned, we've got some smaller and one-time sources that are continuing to fund the program. We actually did receive another grant from the Sacramento Transportation Authority for cycle 2 of the neighborhood shuttle program, and that was $2.4 million. We received also an LC Top grant. That's a state of California grant based on the use of low or zero emission vehicles in several of our zones. We replaced existing dial-a-ride services in both Citrus Heights and the city of Folsom. So they're what's called their Transportation Development Act funds that were directed to those original dial-a-ride programs have been redirected to Smart Ride. So we're able to continue to preserve those service areas through our annexation agreements with those 2 cities. We also received an allocation from Sacramento County through their Transportation Management Association for $50,000 per year, roughly, for the Vineyard area, which is part of the Elk Grove zone. We were able to reallocate some of the federal relief funds that we recently received to this program. And then there is a modest application of SAC-RT general operating revenues to the program. So we have some gaps to fill at year 3, but I think there's a funding table. Sure what slide it is. Here it is. So, and this is kind of just what I went over that with the funding program. So in year 3, we've got a few gaps where our relief funding will expire. The funding from Sacramento County may or may not be renewed. So we may need to revisit this, but we're hopeful that there'll be another local sales tax measure that would support the continuation of this program or a similar program after 2026. So we strategized on potential changes to the program when we knew that we would have less funding available to us than we had previously. And actually, the reductions are fairly modest. We had 2 zones where we had service from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. That's downtown and Citrus Heights. You can scroll through a little bit. So downtown and Citrus Heights, we had service from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. We're going to switch that effective August 28th to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for all zones. All the other zones were already 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can go to the next one. So in Citrus Heights, there's another change. This was one of our largest zones, and we call it the Citrus Heights zones, but really it included Citrus Heights, Antelope, Orangevale, parts of Fair Oaks. So we knew that it was our most expensive zone at $1.9 million annual operating cost for the zone. So we have proposed eliminating the Fair Oaks portion of the Citrus Heights zone and parts of the Orangevale area. But we did our best to maintain connectivity from Citrus Heights to Folsom. We know many people are making that direct trip and connecting over to that side of Folsom. Maintain connections to essential services and continue service to the more disadvantaged portions of the zone. The zones that are proposed to be eliminated are the least disadvantaged portions of the zone. That's the way to look at it. Likewise with downtown, we have made some modifications. You can flip to the next one, Adam. This was our second most expensive zone at $1.7 million a year. So, and a lot of demand. So downtown generally has a high level of fixed route service with a couple of exceptions. The Alder Grove Marina Vista neighborhood at the kind of the bottom left corner of this zone, where we had a lot of demand for service and there's less fixed route available in that community. We are proposing eliminating the East Sacramento portion of the zone, which is again the least disadvantaged portion of the downtown zone, or that does have some fixed route service availability. We're also proposing 7 to 7 on this zone. Next one, please. Okay, so this zone actually is getting a small addition, a cost neutral addition. This is Gerber. The Gerber zone, we're going to add 2 more square miles to the zone between Root Ridge Road and 14th Avenue, providing transit service to an area with limited east-west transit connections, and will provide some access to the library and grocery shopping in that community. So Smart Ride is addressed a little bit differently for SAC-RT than our standard fixed route services. We do have some flexibility to make changes to these zones somewhat spontaneously. And as long as those, we have those requests for service and they're cost neutral, like this example in Gerber, where we can add a small segment. We do intend to closely monitor all the recommended changes, including comments, obviously from our board of directors, from the community, and we'll continue to make adjustments as needed. One final note, the Smart Ride app is going to be updated also on August 28th when these service changes will take effect. And now people will have the option to receive information about fixed route services that might be available to them when they make their Smart Ride request. So a bit more of a trip planner within that Smart Ride app. So including nearby bus and light rail. And that's all I wanted to share with you today about Smart Ride. Be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, yes, any questions from the MAC for Laura? Yes, Isabel.
I actually have a lot to say about Smart Ride. I live in Midtown and it is so not something that has lent itself for the consumers that I serve. There's a lot of accessibility barriers. Why is it that this service can deny accommodating people with disabilities?
If there's a specific issue that we could work with you on, I'm
Well,
not sure what you mean.
The
by
number,
it-
the
by
number
accommodate.
one, this is the one I'm gonna mention. There's more, but, the app, when you're using VoiceOver, gives you. And those of us that travel using our cane, we need to know north, south, east, west, and, of that intersection. There has been no way for me to know with any anticipation or during the arrival of the bus or the shuttle, how to figure out where that vehicle is. I can't get a hold of dispatch. I can't get a hold of the driver. My app doesn't tell me. And unless I find some stranger that happens to be walking by, I have often missed my shuttle.
And if you have further things, Isabel, I suggest that perhaps you and Laura can contact Priscilla and you can work through Priscilla to get to Laura.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's the big one.
Well, thanks very much.
Understood. Thank you.
Jeff, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I did. And I've made this complaint before and I'm sure it won't do any good, but I'll make it again. Since it affects me. I don't know why the South Sacramento zone or the one that's in my area ends at Freeport and skips Freeport to the freeway, which is exactly where I have to live. I've complained about that for years, but hasn't done any good.
We'll take a look at that for you. Please give you an answer.
Any other questions or comments from members of the MAC? Seeing none, virtually, I don't see anything. See no hands, okay. Then Jeff Turdikia, again, very quickly, 1 minute, Jeff.
Related to the Madison one, just like Broadway, apparently it's the north side of the street. So the Fair Oaks Library is going to be excluded because it's south on Madison. Just want to confirm that. The other thing is because I'm involved with Pitt, what is going to be the transportation for the small houses that are being built for the homeless, provided at the homeless at, I believe it's Florin and Power Inn. It seems that area is excluded, whereas the Walmart is included, similarly in that map area. Just two observations.
Jeff. Okay, Laura, many thanks. All these have been really good and it's really nice to see you here again.
To see you as well. Thank you.
Okay, take care. Okay, moving right along. We now are at the railroad station update with Sangeeta Araya. I think she is virtual. Oh, no, there she is. I remember you introducing yourself. Sorry about that.
I'm here, but
You pull the mic down a little closer to you. Or are you?
it's advantage. So thank you, everybody here. Again, we had, a Stantec, the rail yard design team last MAC meeting to present rail yard improvement project, and they described a pretty detail on the station and platform that they have planned part of their project. I know that Priscilla and I talked with our team and there was some questions regarding the project and concerns that why we didn't bring this project to the MAC committee before. So just wanted to give a quick updates. And of course, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll try to answer everything. And again, there is a follow-up. We'll definitely answer that as well. So currently the plan is at 65%. Prior to this, it was only 35% design, and that 35% design was like concept design. There was not really a drawings or anything up to the point that you can visibly or we can really see exactly how the platform looks like and how the amenities is going to be look like. So we didn't want it to come to a MAC committee without having a proper, all the, information. And then we'll have again follow-up anyway. So that was a reason for delaying to come to the MAC committee. Once we felt like technically there is enough information that we can share with MAC committee, we still have room to get the comments. Again, after 65, they have 85%, then they have 100%, then they go out to bid. Still, we have a room for after the bid to change the stuff if we require till it goes to the construction. So we have a way to go. Having said that, there was another questions regarding the platform and mini high platform itself. This is the developer project, and we provided our design criteria, our standard spec, and based on that, they built the platform. So if you go to any of the Southland Phase 2 platform, anywhere from Merson Creek, Franklin, CRC, Center Parkway, this is going to be exact same concept. This is just a platform. Only difference you are going to see on this location is for the project they are working on currently, there is only single platform will be serving both north and south. So if we think about Green Line, which is right now serving from 13th Street to Richard Boulevard, will be serving both direction. It's going towards Richard Boulevard and serving back to the 13th Street direction as well. We'll have a 2 mini high platforms. Again, it's going to be not flat, like permanent platform. It's going to be removable platform that can be removed once we have every low floor vehicles present in our system. Again, the platform is designed exactly as Southland Phase 2. It's 8 inches above the grade to, make the requirement for already low floor designated. And it has all the facility that we have for every single platform. It has a dynamic message sign. It has a vending machine. There is a cameras. There are benches. There is 2 mini high platform and so. So again, I'm happy to answer any specific question you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jean.
We are hopefully, when we are able to schedule an access meeting, I'm sure that you might be available to come and talk to us and provide us with a tactile layout. I understand about the platform, but there's basically one low floor platform and 2 mini platforms at the ends. But there's other things where in relationship to those, where benches are, where very machines and the various approaches. And there's understandably, there's no standardization of a lot of that, depending on the location and physical restriction. And that's where we're trying to find out, because there have been stations in the past created where it's an obstacle course that you have to go through to get to and from the train. So that's the reason that those of us that are totally blind would like the opportunity to have a better understanding of the true tactile layout, to understand that it may be as simple as, as you report, that's straightforward. But seeing that, we also are interested in the design of the benches that would be available, whether there are types that are need be, somebody, waiting for a while, wants to transfer out of their wheelchair and wants to sit on the bench. Two is, are there going to be benches with a back to them so that people with back disorders have something to lean back against? So, I mean, that's drilling down a lot. And that's sort of kind of some of what we need to know. And we appreciate, really do, the last presentation, when you brought in your designers and yourself, and just hope that we can drill down more in these details after we have something tactile that we can look at. And perhaps maybe you could tell us something about the type of benches that will be installed.
Jean, I think the tactile presentation you're referring to might be some sort of 3D rendition.
Yes,
Yeah, that's exactly
when I asked about 3D printing,
right.
whether RT has internally, engineering department, one of those that the, that can be used with the solar area, and if that, which I'd be surprised if there isn't one, if that is something that could be looked into as an accommodation for the MAC. Not just this project, for other projects. I mean, I can remember going ancient time when David Solomon used to come and give us presentations, and he used to scrape together funding to put together some incredible tactile relief mock-ups of the platforms, the stations, with detail with the benches and everything. And there were times we were able to find issues and solutions and resolve those so that there wasn't a problem when construction, so there wasn't any change orders having to be issued.
Okay, if I might, that whole issue of the 3D rendition is I've had some discussions with Priscilla. That is still under discussion here. And to the request is, I think it's really quite reasonable, but it is under discussion. And
You can get them as cheap as $200.
that cool. If you have any more information, about sourcing and that sort of thing, it's probably worth letting Priscilla know, and she can go to some detail about that.
Okay, Amazon is a good source.
I just want to also comment, follow, piggyback on what Carl was saying. Yeah, there's still discussion underway. But it isn't as simple as it's purchasing something for $200. It's a very expensive proposition, and this particular project that Tangia is presenting is not a SAC-RT project. This is a project that's much larger in scope. SAC-RT is commenting and providing review and input on this project. There will not be any kind of rendition available to you, whether it's now or at an upcoming 89 committee meeting. I think what Tangia was trying to express today is that, and you mentioned benches, we are following suit with something that would be very similar at all the stations. So the South Lane is an example of what the platform will be if you have familiarity with that. If there's a way to go out to a particular location that's ideal to actually get an experience for what it will be like, that is more a reality for us than anything that we pertain to some sort of a mock-up through some 3D format or process. So again, there's not, that isn't something that we're going to be able to do, especially with this project. It's not our project. And it can be very costly. So with that,
Okay,
did you
Priscilla,
have,
let me respond then.
okay,
If there is an existing station that is similar to what is being proposed, you're talking about a field trip, totally supportive of that, let's do it. But I think what I'm saying is, I'm talking more than just this one project, whether it's that RT has some say about it. It's a Title II program access matter. And it's, section 35.160 to do with effective communications. And that is providing an accessible layout, something that is accessible would fall as a reasonable modification. So we've got a Title II issue here, and for program accessing and effective communication. So I'd like RT not to forget that and see what can be done. And this is not an issue that's just being brought up now. This has been brought up repeatedly for at least 20, 30 years. So I'll talk with you and we can further discuss it, but if there is a station that is similar to it,
Yeah.
let's have a field trip.
Right.
Yes, sorry. So, the Southland Phase 2, the Franklin Station has a nice parking lot and all the kind of like, easy access from everybody. So if you would like, again, Franklin Station will be the like replicate that we are looking at this project. So Franklin Station on the Southland Phase 2 and Priscilla,
So maybe the best resolution at this point, Gene, is to work through Priscilla and Sangeeta and arrange a site visit at the site that Sangeeta just recommended.
Sure.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other comments on Sangeeta's presentation from members of the MAC? See, nothing online. Okay, Jeff Tartagia, again, 1 minute, sir.
Yes, Jeff Tartagia. Where is the second track going to be laid for the 7th light rail station? To the west, to the east of it? Because I noticed in your site, and I will reiterate, I think with all the construction that RT is going through, it would be very helpful. All you have to do is look at 65th Street and see the problems that right now involve of putting in the low floor platform available in there. And that's my minute comment.
again, it's a future project and Laura, you can correct me, but part of this project currently is going to be the existing track. We are just having the platform built again, and then once it's going to be for inbound, outbound on the outbound direction from the capital going towards Richard. And then once future project, which is going to be part of the airport line, ultimately, it's going to get built. This right now, the one we are having the existing track, it's an exclusive right-of-way track for SAC-RT with elevation designated, so there is no cars get through it. But ultimately, part of the airport is going to be second track. Again, parallel to how the existing, the vehicles are coming inbound towards the capital. There is going to be track on that side of the road. And again, serving exact same way, mirror image of the going to be the platform getting built. It's going to be on the other side of that, the 7th Street, the inbound direction, basically where right now is a walkway. So it's going to build on that direction of it. They already have, it's going to be City of Sacramento right away. We'll be working with them on it. And once that is going to get built, it's going to be a single mini high on its direction till we have low floor everything. And again, it's going to be a mixed traffic lane, just like what we have in the downtown.
Okay. Say another thank you, Sangeeta. I
Thank-
really appreciate it.
Thanks
And
so much, guys.
thanks for coming back and clarifying some things.
And
for us.
thanks so much.
All right. SAC-RT Go Paratransit Services Operation Update with Richard Mitchell. Richard.
Good afternoon, Chair Johnson and MAC members. I am Richard Mitchell, the Director of Community and Contract Bus Services. And today I will be giving you an update on the SAC Go RT paratransit services. So as you can see up on the screen, our ridership for June concluded with us still maintaining over 26,266 passengers for the month of June. And what SAC-RT Go did as ridership was 20,157 and user did 6,109. So before I give the yearly totals, one of the things I want to highlight on that is if you look at the entire year for SAC Go RT, that was the first month we exceeded 20,000 passengers with just SAC Go. So that was an accomplishment by itself. The other thing is that this was the second month in a row that we exceeded 26,000 for the entire year. So we definitely are seeing consistently where ridership is growing, because when you look at the prior months, we started out July of 22 at 21,000, and then we're kind of in like the low 22,000 total ridership. And then we ended the year with jumping to in March to 25,000, and then the last 2 months to 26,000. So we definitely have seen an increase in our ridership, in our usage, and we are for the month of June, our percentage based upon pre-COVID numbers of what the ridership was, we're at 86% of pre-COVID numbers. So we only have 14% left to get to what our pre-COVID numbers were. Then going to our on-time performance. So for the month of June, SAC-RT Go on-time performance was 82%, users was 99, with a combined on-time performance of 86%. So again, we're seeing based upon from where we started out in February and March, continual increase in that on-time performance mark, even though our ridership is increasing for us. So it's definitely stressing our system and our efficiencies, and looking at how we can continue to grow, let alone maintain what we're doing. But we definitely have a lot of ideas, a lot of strategies we've implemented, and we're continuing to try to find other areas that we can make changes to continually improve our service. One of the other things I want to bring out is another key metrics that you use is also your ridership per hour. Have been going with this. We're not quite to 2 riders per hour, but we're at 1.95 for the last month and of June. But we're right there. And Paratransit, like when Paratransit Inc. was doing this, they were just a little over 2, but that's hard to make a comparison because prior to COVID, we had a lot of group trips and a lot of site programs that the paratransit would go to. So you may have 6, 8, 12 people on the vehicles. And since COVID, that's kind of went away and we really haven't seen it coming back yet. So a lot of what we're doing, even though you may look at our ridership per hour as being a little bit lower, it's actually more productive just because we're having a lot more single or 2-person trips or passenger trips instead of those group trips.
Okay, Jeff Dom.
Yeah, I just have a question, and I don't know whether you or Carmen will have an answer to this because it's not actually fully paratransit related, but Sacramento related, I should say. How does the increase that we're seeing in Sacramento Go rides compare with the increase or lack thereof in bus and light rail ridership? Can anybody answer that? I don't know.
I'm going to have to defer to Carmen because I don't really know the light rail and fixed route ridership.
Sure.
As you can tell, I know the paratransit number very well.
Yeah, you do.
It's 70% recovered for fixed route of pre-COVID, our ridership.
As compared to what for Sacramento Go?
SAC-RT Go, I believe we're at 83%.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay, Jeff Cardigan. I'm sorry. Frank Trujillo.
Good afternoon, Richard.
Hey, Frank.
How many council rides does user sending actually on a daily basis when they have 17 to 20 drivers who used to, when they first started, we were able to do 10 to 15 rides a day, but now they're down to 2 or 3, and they don't understand why user is sending you back canceled rides. For example, last week, one of my members, a second driver showed up at her house, and as he was knocking at the door, he got a phone call from user saying that Sacramento Go just canceled the ride, even though he was there at her house already. So a bus showed up 20 minutes later to pick her up. So why is user sending you back rides on a daily basis when they have more than enough drivers to still do all those rides?
Yeah, I would have to look into the specifics, like what the numbers are and any trends of those. But I know that looking at the number of the trips that we send over the user on a daily basis has been pretty consistent. So we haven't really seen a decrease in the numbers that we're sending over. And I do receive emails from my team. Whenever user does cancel and sends back trips. And I really haven't seen a huge spike in those numbers. So
I was told by 2 drivers that their user was sending back to you about 10 to 15 rides a day, back to you guys, giving them 25%. If you're close to averaging 1,200 rides a day, so you're giving them 300, and they're sending back 15 to 20 rides back to you. Why? If they have more than available drivers to do that.
yeah, I will definitely address that with user, because in my calls this week, and just so that the MAC committee understands, I actually had 3 calls with users this week, 2 of them with Jess, one-on-one with her, addressing some of the issues that were experienced. And when we did talk about the trip, because trips being returned to us and returned to us timely is a subject on our weekly calls. And also I addressed it one-on-one with her, and looking at what are the reasons for that. And the explanation I got was that the only time that they'll return them to us is that whether or not that trip hadn't been chosen in the grouping, but once it's been chosen, that the driver had something going on, like either a flat tire, an accident, or a personal reason. So that was the explanation I actually got this week. So I definitely revisit with them and bring this and address it again and get more specifics on it with the information that we just shared with you.
And you know, I filed over 30 complaints about drivers who don't have signs on the vehicles, don't know how to accept zip pass, don't know where to pick up people, don't know where to drop them off. Why has that not been corrected?
And those individual items that you just addressed. So discussing that with user, with the team over there, and looking at what's going on, why are we, like specific example, the address is given to them, but then they have a different address that the driver gets. So what occurs is user has their own app, and all the information is sent to the drivers in that app. Now, if the driver chooses to use like maps or some other GPS, because the user app is a GPS, and that's how they know what speed did they go, what route they went on. They can pull all that information, speed, where they went, how long were they at a stop back from them. And user higher up assured me this week, Jess, that if the driver turns that app off, they're immediately released from the system and they will not work for user at all. So if they're using supplemental applications and then they're entering the information wrong, we will investigate that, and we're tracking that. And well, users tracking that with their drivers, we're tracking it also. So that if that's a continual pattern, and that's what I keep bringing up with them, if there's patterns, we definitely don't want that person giving our service to or SACRT.
Okay, so I'm gonna file a complaint for the driver that brought me here today. He didn't know how to accept zip ties. He said, just pay me cash. And I gave him a $5 bill. And he said that he had no sign on his vehicle, and he did know the exact address in which to bring it. And he said he's been working for them for 4 months.
Okay.
So I'm gonna file that
Okay.
complaint tomorrow morning.
Yes, and we will know exactly who that driver is, and then those specific type of complaints, because that one is not just like, oh, the driver didn't say hi to me. I mean, this is more complex than that and a bigger issue. And weekly, I bring up in my agenda with user those, like, you know, the bigger complaints, and we review those and we want resolution, so that I'm bringing it to the higher management and users' attention and not just to their customer advocacy. And then with the signage, as I can say, I'm working really hard. I'm trying to figure out, not myself, my whole team, all of SACRT Go, our marketing, Carmen, my vice president, everybody, we're trying to figure out a solution for the signage and why it's not consistently being displayed. One of the issues is I have these, they're 5-inch squares. They look all white, but I have one on my SACRT. It's hard to see. I know that everybody cannot see what I'm holding up, but it clings onto the window. It's a 5-inch by 5-inch. So far, the testing that I've done with it displays well. I have to make sure that California Vehicle Code allows us to put it where we want to put it. looking at other alternatives, a variety of issues, not just this one, but we're working on those, testing them out, trying to figure out what's occurring. And then addressing also with user the consequences when drivers aren't doing that, because we need to send the message to them that this is getting to a point where it's completely unacceptable. Because one, I do not want my family members being like scheduling a trip, a vehicle that's has no signage on it, showing up, and then them saying, oh, you need a ride, and then they just jump in, and then that may not be a user vehicle. So I definitely want to make sure that that's identified, the vehicles are, and that there's a safety issue related to this. It's not just oh, whether they have a sign or not. And so this is a high priority for Sacramento.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Okay, I have three people with questions. I'm going to Gina Lozano next.
Richard, thank you very much for bringing up the various items that Frank, and Margie's email, and I don't know if Margie's still online, but she asked me to bring up. So not to rehash, you mentioned about the concerns of a driver not, identifying themselves, who they are, so forth, so that if a totally blind person doesn't know who they're dealing with. Margie had one suggestion, and maybe she's already shared it with you and Priscilla. I don't know, but she just brought this up to me just before I left. She called me, and that is that perhaps you folks might want to work with your security people to see if there's some suggestions they might have that might assist in working to get the companies identifying themselves, or if there's some other method, maybe technology, the smartphone, that you could scan the vehicle and pick up QR code of some sort that at least would identify the vehicle before you get into it. So it was her suggestion, and maybe she could flush it out more with you. What can be done, and maybe security has some suggestions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Jeff Tom.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Who's next?
First. So
Okay, I'm sorry, Helen.
Hi, I have several blind friends that say that the youth serve drivers don't come to the door. They won't assist them to the car. They don't identify themselves. And several of them have made complaints, and it's like they've been blacklisted off of youth serve because they haven't had cars in several months, like since February. So I don't know if it's been a practice that they would go to RT Go, because the RT Go drivers come to the door, they identify themselves, they come and tell them where they walk into the vehicle and all that kind of stuff. So I was just wondering if they have changed the way they do things and they're no longer youth serve qualified, or what's going on. A lot of my friends are going. I haven't had a youth serve driver since I've made a complaint.
Yeah, the complaints do not trigger any type of access to user or not, because like my approach is user needs to correct the issues, and that if they're not, I'm going to hold them accountable, and we're going to hold the drivers accountable, and we're not going to want that driver doing trips for us. So the going to the door, just like the signage on the vehicles, they're both being addressed equally the same. Also opening the door and assisting passengers in and out of the vehicles. All of that was really in over a couple of hours of meetings this week with just Jess, who's the kind of like the regional vice president of user. And my explanation to her is, whether it's a user vehicle or a SAC-RT Go, the expectations of what our passengers and our customers are going to receive should be identical. And there should be no difference to that. And that's what our contract states, and that's what I'm going to hold them to. And so, as you can tell from my tone, there is some heated discussions on this. And, and we need to have that service consistent. And then there should not be a difference between the whether it's SAC-RT Go or our supplemental service. If there's a sense that somebody has been removed, we definitely can look into that, and we can look into our database and see if something has changed, that maybe when the reservationist has identified that either by comments that were given, or maybe a reservation, our customer service that we've changed, not they're eligible for user or not, but
Thank you very much. I'll forward that information.
thank you.
Thanks. Jeff Tom.
Yeah, and this is just a quick comment, with respect to Frank, your first item about canceled rides. I noticed, and this is the first time I saw this happen, but it's a good thing. I had a ride canceled this week, a USERV ride, and it was obviously sent right back out to USERV because within about an hour or less, it was reconfirmed by what had turned out to be a different USERV, obviously. So they did pick up the ride, and that meant that obviously SAC-RT Go had sent it back out. So I thought that was a good thing.
And that actually happened to my member last week. The first driver who took it to Freiburg the night before, counted 2 hours before in the morning. Then another driver got it, but then for whatever reason, the user person called him and canceled it, even though he was already at her house. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, fortunately, mine didn't have that problem. It worked out perfectly.
Okay, Gene, and
This is real quick. This is
Yeah.
really quick. Richard, just my experience coming here this afternoon for the meeting. I don't know whether I didn't ask the driver whether he did or did not have the sign. But all the other things that you've been trying to do, the driver identified himself, that what company was, all things, and I was staying out front of my house, so he didn't go to the door, but he made certain that I, get into the vehicle, getting out. He asked if I'd like assistance going to the front entrance of the building. He did that. He seemed to know the self-guide process. So it's what I just telling you that, you are making inroads, and this driver's been driving for 1 month right now with the company. So just wanted you to hear something positive.
Thank you.
very good. Thanks for that. Okay, seeing no other comments on this. Oh, I'm sorry. Isabel, please. No, your mic is not on.
Yeah, the secret item. Excellent.
Oh, there we go. Okay,
I'll show you.
please, and thank you. My suggestion is having some kind of secret staff that are monitoring these situations as if they were consumers.
Yeah, okay, I have 2 responses to that. So the first one is with paratransit and it being like passengers need to be eligible, it's a little harder to get the secret riders, like for fixed route. It's a little easier for them to get in, or the other way, it's not. But what we've done in response to that is utilizing the supervisors that we have here at SAC-RT, and having them go out and do, we call them unobserved, so they just kind of park across the street. So my staff at SAC-RT Go knows all the user trips that were sent over. We give them a form and we send the location, what the person's name is that's picking them up, what the vehicle looks like. And then we have a checklist on them. Is there the signage on there? Is the user and Go signage on there? Did they go to the door? Did they open the car door? Did they assist if needed? Any other area for comments? And then we, as we receive these, we've been sharing those back with user. And I would have to say, we're on the handful, because maybe we're just at about, I think about 15 of these that we've done so far. It's about 50% where there's an issue, 50% where there's not. So we do get some positive feedback on it that the drivers are doing what they're supposed to, but we are seeing in a small sampling, a significant number of issues that definitely need to be addressed. And then we're sharing those right away with user and talking about them. When we address those, because of the fact we don't have cameras on our vehicles, so it's a little bit of a challenge to pull video and then confirm the complaint. And I don't want to get in, the driver said this and the passenger said this. So we need to kind of get beyond that and figure the root cause of this problem, correct it, and get the service out there that one, SAC-RT is paying for, and two, our customers are expecting.
Great answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Gene, quickly.
Well, why don't you, either contract with a few riders with disabilities who use the service, train them to be the mystery rider, just like Isabel was suggesting, or having actually have Ron Brooks from User actually have him make him part of the system, let him try the system. And because the drivers won't know who he is from the company, I mean, but I think it'd be better to have, some riders that you screen and that they're trained. So I think I'd explore still the concept of contracting with the company or doing it internally. An effective the mystery rider the fixed route, but I think it's an excellent suggestion, Isabel.
Well, I'll just interject, and it is a great suggestion, and we are working on a secret rider, mystery rider RFP right now that I'll be part of. So it is something that will pull in the supplemental services as well.
That's exciting.
Yeah, more to come on that. Thanks.
Any other comments on this subject? Okay, Richard, many thanks. Lots of stuff.
Yes, thank you. And then just as a reminder, we are now going to be going to quarterly updates.
Right.
So in October, I'll be updating Mac on July, August, and September's information.
Very good. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Okay, without further ado, let's move on to our last item, which is under new business. We need to take a look at our bylaws. And I think all of you have received a copy of the revised bylaws as well as, okay, there we go. And a note that I sent around as to why we're doing this, and just a brief introduction here. After last month's meeting, the executive council had, according to the way things were right now with our bylaws, in order for the MAC to have a quorum, it had to be present here physically, and that people on Zoom basically did not count towards achieving a quorum. So that's what this language has is geared towards, as well as a couple of other statements regarding attendance. So knowing the bylaws, I have to read what's being what was there and what the changes are, and then we can go from there. So I would like to put that up a little closer. No, just put it on. Okay, so on page 2 under attendance policy, section 4. There we go. Okay. The second sentence is attendance is defined as being present for more than half of the regular and special in person. I think we have that up there. Okay. So that is the reading of the proposed change. Are there any questions about that? And what I would, yes, Gene.
Are you going to read then what changes are there? Because
Okay,
there's some changes there.
right. Can you get that other Red light, yeah. It should have been red light. I don't see it. Yeah, but I don't see I think the red is just the, what's changed in red, okay. Okay, right, okay, I will, read it again. I will first read the original and then I will read the change. Okay. The original is attendance is defined as being present for more than half the meeting, period. The proposed change is attendance is defined as being present for more than half of the regular and special MAC meetings in person, period. Gene?
I feel there should be some changes to that suggestion, I think. And that is that, let me read the list right now. In sentence one, sentence two. I'm having a problem with neuropathy in my fingertips.
Oh, sure.
And
You want me to pass it down? I'm trying to read it for you.
no, this is my shorthand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's good try.
Okay, attendance is defined as being present for more than half of the regular and special meetings. Here's where it comes. As well as standing committees. That's the term, and then meetings, comma, either in person or virtually. The thing is, we're trying to get into not just in person, but also virtual, needing that. And the sentence before it, it does mention MAC and subcommittee. And that needs to be a subcommittee, and that needs to be changed to standing committee to be consistent with Article 7. So that's the reason I have added in sentence 2 that MAC as well as standing committee meetings, either in person or virtual.
Okay, the issue on standing committee is as follows. Most of the time, our standing committees in general are held virtually. We are no longer holding those in person.
There's going to be, Charles, there's going to be a time or two that a meeting like the ANI committee, a field trip, or going over, despite what the opinion might be, providing accessible layouts of things more in depth that will require better meeting in person. So we shouldn't preclude ourselves from virtual meetings. And I'm a strong promoter of having the meeting many as possible virtually. But the thing is, we need to be open to the possibilities that there'll be a necessity to have an in-person meeting of some form.
Okay, I have comment from Pam and then I think,
If I'm understanding correctly, the issue is that it's not legally advised for us to vote unless we are here in person, and I assume there's some reason for that. And that is the gist of these changes. Is that correct?
that's correct.
And there are more changes, so
There are additional changes.
For the part you just read?
for the part that the MAC has used. It has to do with the Brown Act. That's a big thing.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not like we can choose. If
So-
we have virtual voting or not?
Well, actually, what happens later on is that it's specified in here that we are not subject to the Brown Act. And so therefore, the quorum is not required to be present in person. And I get Jeff's comment here too.
Yeah, and I think actually, Pam, your comment is, I think it's incorrect, and I don't mean that it's wrong or anything, but by the changes, right now, we do have to be in person to have a quorum. But by the proposed changes, we don't have to be in person. And so I think that Jean's change would be entirely valid if I understand it correctly, and you know, certainly, Charles, if you disagree with that, then tell me. But from what I understand, we were told by counsel, if we exempt ourselves from the bylaws, which we can do, then the change that Jean's proposing is fine.
And if we exempt ourselves from the Brown Act.
From the Brown Act, I'm sorry, yes, we exempt ourselves from the Brown Act by changing our bylaws, which is what we have to do.
Okay, and Jean, is, I understand what you wanted to add. It says half of the regular and special MAC meetings and subcommittee meetings.
As well as the.
Well, I was gonna say Mac.
Okay.
Okay, and I was dealing with the Ann issues, not because Ann's before, but I was saying Mac as well as standing committee meetings, comma, either in person or virtual.
Okay, right. My position is I disagree with the latter, that is saying that we can, in other words, the way it's written right now is that an attendance is required at, in person at more than half of the regular and special MAC meetings. I have no problem with adding the standing committees. But what this does is it forces people to be physically present at more than half of the meetings.
Well,
That is the position that I hold. I think we ought to try to be here more than half of the meetings in person. I wouldn't disagree on that.
sure,
But I,
Charles, I understand and respect that perspective. I like to attend the meetings in person. I am, for instance, I'm here with a lot of pain medication this morning with my chronic pain, back issues. I forced myself to come here. It would have been more advisable for me to be home and to have participated virtually than here. I am in level 9 right now in pain. And so to have this, to say basically, you know, even if I want to participate and I do it virtually, then I'll be back into the Brown Act that I won't count in whatever vote might be. I won't be able to participate. So you're penalizing a MAC member who may really want to be there in person, but can't do it. You need to have some avenue of flexibility.
there is avenue of flexibility, and that is attend more than half of the meetings. There are a bunch of, at least 5 meetings that you can attend virtually without getting away from this. And
Well, okay, just to be
That's-
consistent with the other changes you're making, you need in person or virtual to be consistent. Thank you.
thank you very much. Let's see, I'm not quite sure how we need to proceed here. We probably need to proceed on taking a vote for each change that we're going to make rather than as a bunch. So if is there any further discussion on these changes?
Yeah.
Yes, Jeff.
Procedurally, I would request we do the easy change first and exempt ourselves from the Brown Act. Because that is something I think we can all vote to.
All right, let's do that. Okay, let's go to page 5.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, this is on page 5. It's under Article 5 Meetings, Section 4, entitled Meetings to the Public. And the first thing I will read is the statement as it was, and then I will read the changes. The statement or the way it was originally written was MAC meetings will be conducted in public to the extent required by the Ralph M. Brown Act, open paren, Government Code, Section 54950, at the period, close paren. And then it goes on, for meetings open to the public as required by the Ralph M. Brown Act. Meeting agendas will be posted by the SACRT staff in a public place and distributed to all members at least 72 hours before the meeting. That's the original language. The change in language goes as follows. As a citizens advisory group to the Sacramento Regional Transit District Board of Directors, MAC meetings are not subject to the Ralph M. Brown Act, Government Code, Section 54950 as sequence, close paren, hereinafter, quote, Brown Act, close quote. And its meetings do not have to comply with the requirements of the Brown Act. Notwithstanding the foregoing, the MAC will endeavor to ensure that its meetings are accessible to the public and will provide notice of the date, time, and location of its meetings so that the public can attend, period. If a meeting will be conducted entirely virtually, the MAC will endeavor to make the meeting accessible to the public to view the meeting virtually, period. And then goes on for meetings open to the public as required by the Brown Act, which is the original language. So that is the original language, and then the second was the change. And what was struck was MAC meetings will be conducted in public to the extent required by the Brown Act. That was struck. Any questions on what was struck or what the change is? Any comments?
I move the adoption.
Second,
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All of those in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention. Okay. I think there is one other item here. It's the next section, Section 5, quorum. And I will read the original language and then following the new language. A majority of the members must be present at a meeting to constitute a quorum for the purposes of conducting business. Here, the old language. The new language, a majority of the members must be present at a meeting either in person or virtually to constitute a quorum for the purposes of conducting business. Okay, any discussion? Gene?
Well, I agree with as far as it goes. I think it should have the redundancy that the Brown Act does not apply to this with the quorum and the voting in there. And if I am assuming, and I'll support this, that this will pass. But then this will be to my recommendation for the other Article 3, in Section 4, the second sentence, because but we'll get to it. Let's pass this.
Sorry. Okay. Jeff, do you have any comment there?
No, I'm glad Gene said that. I was gonna make him out of order.
All right. Any further discussion on this?
How-
Yes, Steve.
Okay, can we consider adding to it a reference in it that the Brown Act does not apply to the quorum and the voting?
I think that would be redundant from what was.
Well, the other one was public meetings. But it only referred to public meetings being open and making them virtual available to the public. It does not refer at all to us as MAC members. It's just to the public. That's a public meeting. That's all it is.
Yeah, I'm, my opinion too is that it would be redundant, that we've already said that we're not subject to the Brown Act, and I don't think we need to restate it.
Yeah, and I know that legal was involved with, obviously, the review of this before it came to the MAC for this meeting. So they would have added that language again if necessary.
I think there will be interpretations to that later on. I really do.
Yeah, Isabel. All right, get your mic if you would, please.
Oh, somebody putting this thing for me. Okay, thank you. As a complete novice, I'm going to inquire about putting some of this clarification language up front. Right, so that we clarify that this applies to both public and MAC members, not repeatedly throughout each clause, but in the introduction.
Well,
Sorry, I did not follow. Somebody can help, or you can restate it, or somebody else help me out.
Okay, so let me try to restate. So this change, right, is initially introduced in the first sentence. After public meetings or before public meetings, you start using new language, saying you're not going to be using the Brown Act standards. Is it possible at that point to clarify that when we speak of this amendment, that we are including both public and MAC member meetings in the one sentence, right at the beginning of that change? And I'm
Right, you're talking about the sentence where it says, for meetings open to the public
yes,
required by the Brown Act,
right,
meeting attendance will be posted by
Right.
in a public place. And
right. So if we add their meetings to the public and MAC member meetings, well, I'm thinking of consumers that I want to bring to attend these meetings, and they're going to need more than just basic, read this, please. I want to bring, as part of what I read in our bylaws, is that we're supposed to bring new people here. Young people is who I'm focusing on, and there's a lot of learning that goes on there. So I think having a language that underscores our welcomingness to people that are not as versed as the current members, that would be helpful as well.
Gene?
You know, I know we're trying to get a goal, and I think there's a lot more that can be done, and we know that we need to make other changes. And you know, this may be a statement that Isabel's in there to, like, in, I think, Article 2, right up in front with the mission and the group, and putting something that we're not under the Brown Act, and you know, doesn't, you know, voting, something just concise right there at the very beginning of the bylaws. But that, I think, will require an actual meetings of the Constitution, the Bylaws Committee, and further, in other words, further work down the road. But I think right now it's like this is kind of a bandage solution that can quickly be dealt with, so that we have the options of virtual. So I understand what Isabel's saying, is doing there. I don't disagree with her, but I think we have to look at that maybe down the road with other changes. So, okay,
Thank you for getting it.
yeah, I got it. Good suggestion.
Pam?
I have never been on any committee where something with wording is being voted on, no matter how polished it is, where you don't end up with a discussion just like this, because everybody has, you know, their own ideas in it, and they have good ideas. But I think Jean has put forth a simple solution, is let's just deal with the main thing, and yeah. But this is not unusual.
No, I mean, language is difficult.
I'm a linguist and a speech therapist. I have to agree.
Right. Okay, Any further discussion on this?
I move the adoption as written.
Second.
Okay, Jeff moves and seconds. All of those in opposed, abstention. All right, let's go back to the fun one on page 2. And thanks for that procedural item there, Jeff. And by the way, just for everybody, no, once we finish with this work in the bylaws today, whatever we recommend is going to be going to the board of directors, and they have to approve it also. It has been approved by legal, then we have to approve it, and then the board has to approve it. So, anyway. All right, back on page 2, and I think it's, I don't know if it's section 1 or not, but it's article 3 membership.
Section 4.
Yeah, back over, yeah, Article 3 membership. Section 4 attendance policy. And so we're back to the sentence again. I will read the original and then the proposed change. Attendance is defined as being present for more than half the meetings, period. The proposed change reads as attendance is defined as being present for more than half of the regular and special MAC meetings in person. So there we are. This has nothing to do with the quorum. It has only something to do with attendance. And it is not an all or nothing thing. If a person needs to miss a meeting in person, then it's perfectly fine for them to attend virtually. They will count towards quorum and their votes will count. So, okay, Gene.
Well, I still believe that we should have in there MAC as well as standing committee meetings and either in person or virtually. You know, it was expressed that it's preferable for the standing committees to meet virtually. So that would take into account the in person or virtually, it would deal with all scenarios. And I think perhaps maybe there's a need for another sentence that that states clearly that it is strongly encouraged that every attempt be made to attend in person as you're requesting. And I don't disagree with that, but you know, I think to be consistent, we need in person, either in person or virtually. So it's encompass everything that we anticipate or can anticipate.
Okay. One comment here, by including the standing committee meetings, then what we're saying there is that we have to have at least 50, more than 50% of the meetings in person. And right now, we have the flexibility to hold more than 50% of them virtually. It does not preclude holding special committee meetings in person, but it allows the flexibility to have most or all of them virtually. And since we only have to have one standing committee meeting a year per the bylaws, then it would be hard to I just don't think we need to add the standing committee meetings here. And I think it works just fine to have the standing committee meetings virtually. You can hold them in person. There's nothing prohibiting that. And especially for site visits. Those almost by definition have to be in person. So at this point, my position is that we adopt the language as here. It does not restrict the standing committee meetings, and it gives us flexibility. The language that is stated here. Yeah.
So would it be better to capture what you're saying, to eliminate special.
Well,
the
special meeting, well, special,
Because aren't the standing committees are special?
well, no, those are standing committees. We have had a closed meeting of the MAC that was not in person a year or so ago. And so that's what I was thinking of, and that language was in the original bylaws in other sections.
I think we need to keep special right in there because if you did accept the standing committee component there, but there's times that the MAC has to have a special meeting. It's been a long time. And a public meeting, but it's special. It's not your regular and standing committees. Sometimes, we do more than just one, and there might be, I know regular doesn't apply because then it's really a special meeting because it's not like we have a fixed date, that we do, specific time in the spring and the fall. It's flexible. So I think special retaining it and I still would like standing committee included here.
Okay, first Pam and Jeff.
I move that we accept the changes as read by the chair.
Okay, do I hear a second? I hear no second. Jeff, Tom, you were going to make a comment?
Yes, I was going to move that we amend it with Gene's changes.
Second,
Which change?
Okay, so there would be in standing committees, so the whole thing would apply to standing committees, and that we add and virtual at the end. I actually do agree, we should say it is strongly encouraged that members attend in person.
We have the wording of that.
I can try and do
Thank-
that. You want me to start from attendance is defined as?
Yes.
Sure.
Attendance is defined as being present for more than half of the regular and special MAC meetings, as well as standing committee meetings, either in person or virtually. That was what Jean had added.
That's great.
Okay, a motion has been made and it has been seconded.
I'll speak on it very briefly if I might. I made the motion. I hear what you're saying, Mr. Chair, and I don't want to be too radical over this, but really one of the main reasons we're going through this exercise is because people do have issues that necessitate virtual attendance, and I can't overlook that as important, and I have to really agree with what Jean had stated earlier, so I have to vote for this.
Okay, and my comment is that, let's see, let me get my thoughts together here. I also agree that there are times when people need or cannot be in person. However, what this will allow is that some people will have a reason to not or to attend virtually for 12 meetings out of the year. And so that, I think, is a real issue. And so what this does is it gives every member flexibility to miss 5 meetings out of the year. And so there's a lot of flexibility there. But if we open it up to the language that is suggested in the motion, then more than one person can attend virtually all the time. And me, that does not help the esprit de corps and camaraderie of the MAC members. I think it's really important for us to try to be here and as many as possible in person for as much time as possible. And by giving one or more or several people the option of never attending in person, I think is not a good way to go for the MAC. And so again, we have the language as written here gives flexibility for when people simply cannot be here. But instead of just strongly encouraging, it adds some teeth to it. So that is why the language is here. Isabel,
I remember to use the microphone.
thank you.
So what I often do is I liaison between my consumer and agency or my consumer and their external needs. And what I'm seeing here is that we're playing a game of all or nothing. So is it possible to say not to exceed a certain limit? So if you've got a minimum, can we also add a maximum?
Well, the language as written here gives a maximum. We have 12 regular meetings a year. So by attending more than half, that gives you a minimum of being absent for 5.
Or virtual.
Or, yeah,
Do anything you want for those.
yeah, do
So-
anything you want. I mean, you can be on your bicycle and attending by cell phone. And I've had people attend Zoom meetings on their bicycle riding through Davis. So,
Yeah, no, what you're saying is that, I'm sorry, there's what, 10 meetings a year,
well,
12 meetings a year. This is saying, you're saying, let's attend 5 in person. Any 5, right, with
no, 7 in person.
7 in person.
Right.
Okay, so I know for sure that I have consumers who are not labeled to leave their, and they have a voice. And they are waiting and able to speak their voice, but they will not be able to do it from amongst us. But I still believe that they are a part of our community. So I'm in favor of having something virtual. I do believe we're going to need additional language because there is some component of the camaraderie and the togetherness of meeting people in person. So additional language further down the road for the discussion, but I am in favor of including every consumer who wants in any way to participate.
As
In the general public, but some of them want to participate as members.
I agree that there are, Pam,
In the interest of time, there seems to be a lack of consensus enough to vote on this right now. Is there any way we could, I don't know, form a committee to come up?
If we
Well-
can't vote on this.
okay, well, I tell you what, since we voted on these, the Brown Act change, the other one, we can simply approve those 2 that we have voted on and approved, and leave this one to a later date. Isabel,
I was gonna say, isn't there a motion on the floor?
there is a motion on the floor. It can be withdrawn.
If that's,
You want to do a mock thing? I'm in favor of.
I'm sorry, you're in favor of,
I'm in favor of Dean's language. What?
that is the motion that's on the floor.
So I would. And that's been seconded.
It has been,
Okay, it's ready for a vote. I'm voting.
right, we're just kicking it around some more right now. That's,
I'm also in favor of Gene's recommendation.
all right, any further discussion on this? All right, all of those in favor of the language as suggested by Dean,
Aye.
opposed? No. Abstentions? Okay, there we go. The motion has been made and approved.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
since we're going to be proposing changes and be consistent, I would like to make one related amendment, and that is in this Article 3, Section 4, first sentence. It uses the term, and that needs to be changed to be standing committee to be consistent with sentence 2 and also with Article 7, and I believe it's other committees, and the section 1 is standing committees is the heading. So
Okay,
I make I move that we change subcommittee to standing in Article 3, Section 4, sentence 1.
Okay, the way that I see it written here, Jean, is MAC members are expected to attend a majority of all regular and special MAC meetings as well as their respective standing committee.
Okay, I apologize. I got it when I was reading my clean version. I got subcommittee and I apologize for that, slowing it down. The track, apparently, according to my JAWS, there's a track feature there, which really was making it difficult to get through the document. All right. So I apologize for the inconvenience of that. Bringing up.
No worries. Thanks very much. Okay, without further ado, I think it's time to call for adjournment. Motion?
I'm late for my ride.
All right, we're adjourned. Still out.
Yeah, I just lost my belt.
On the floor.